Hello everybody. We are going to look at our second Akiba Rubenstein game. Grandmaster from the past, before engines. So we get to look at some normal moves, try to see what they were thinking, see what plans they had in certain openings. So he's up against Georg Salwe. Okay, so Akiba's on the black side, and we get hit with 1e4. I'm not going to guess what he's going to play. Okay, he plays e5. Okay, so probably just, I'm expecting knight c6. Okay, defending the pawn. Okay, white plays the Italian. Um, Gioco piano, develops the bishop, prepares castling. I'm expecting, I don't play this as black, so it's all, let's just figure it out as we go. Knight out is a normal move, or bishop out. Okay, so he goes for bishop out, developing. His opponent hits him with knight in the center. Okay, attacking the center, developing. So I'm expecting knight out or d6. There are other moves, but okay. It's a knight out, very principled. Everything, it's a completely symmetrical position. And white goes d3. Okay, I'm expecting d6 or castles, maybe h6. He goes d6, opening up the bishop. And white puts his bishop here, offering a dark squared bishop trade. Now we could take that. It's a slight weakness. It strengthens his center, which is good for him. It opens the F file, which is good for him. The one bad thing would be in the future, you'd be able to attack this weakness, but so I'm expecting, you could let him take. So I'm expecting bishop out, knight in the center, bishop back. You could play it so many ways. You could castle. So, okay, he just brings the bishop back. He lifts the queen and prepares long castling, possibly. Okay. So now, as black, I would like to work on either castling or my minor piece. Okay, so he brings out his last piece. But if you take this and double the pawns, and he is castling long, he might have an open g file to your king. But let's see. Oh wow, white goes knight g5, just getting it out of the way, preparing pawn storm on the bishop, and threatening the f7 pawn. So very active move. So if Akiba's playing principled, he's just gonna castle, or potentially even bishop h5 ideas. Okay, he goes for bishop h5. Maybe he's keeping the option of queenside castling open. Maybe. Also, this bishop's going to get hit by pawns, so this makes sense to do this in advance. Okay, so here comes the pawn that would have hit the bishop. This cements the center. Kind of just, restricts the pieces. Okay. This all makes sense. It does take away the square from the knight. So I'm expecting maybe an h6 because the knight looks kind of awkward. So h6 or takes, jump in. He could probably trade the bishops and jump his knight in if he wanted. He could probably hunt this bishop with his knight if he wants. He could also castle. He could also move the queen. So it's just a lot of options. I guess the question should really be like, what would I play? Like if this was my game? And that I don't know, it's quite a difficult question. I guess, excuse me, in a tournament you'd have all the time to really think, but just like I'm doing spur of the moment ideas, so they're not going to be super comprehensively thought through, obviously. But yeah, all the moves I mentioned earlier look normal. Yeah, h6 I like. That was why I mentioned it first, because it's very awkward for his knight. And now that we threw this move in for free, it also gives this a cubby hole in case he attacks it again. I'm looking at queen d7, developing my last minor piece, keeping some pressure on this knight, so there might be things like bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, right? Also, it develops the piece. Also, I can castle queenside, which I kind of like. I mean, I want to see where he castles, but... So I'm thinking of lifting the queen. I don't want to show my hand with castling just yet, that's why. Alternatively, if I am planning on castle kingside, no, no. Okay, awesome, awesome. The engine didn't like that move, but I'm glad that I guessed his move, Akiba's move, even if the engine didn't agree. Because screw the engine. So we apply the pressure and we develop our last piece. And now he removes the knight from that tactic that wins a pawn. Still doesn't have a future, which is nice for us. Interesting structure. I wouldn't mind castling queenside here. I also would not mind knight into the center at this point. I think we've done most of what we need to do other than castle. We can stick a knight in the center. I guess, no, you can't really do that unless you trade first. But what's the point? Yes, a knight in the center or castling. Okay, so he goes with knight in the center, still leaving the castling open. I like this. Okay, white takes it. Okay, so which way do we want to take? If we take with the bishop, it's on a nice square, but I don't know. I feel like after he castles or something, it's going to easily be kicked. If we take with the pawn, that immediately hits the knight. Very forcing, so we need to look at where the knight goes. Edge of the board hangs to the queen. This easily be kicked. So if knight back here, the pawn's defended by the bishop. I mean, that does block our own bishop. But once he moves this, yeah, I'm just going to take with the bishop. I want to keep this pawn on e5 because if I take with the pawn, it relinquishes control over f4. Oh wait, did I just move the bishop or did I press forward? Okay, no, he took the bishop. Yeah, I mean, he took with the bishop. Okay, I'm tripping. Okay, so now this guy moves... What the hell is this? He moves back and protects the pawn. But you wouldn't need to protect the pawn if you didn't move the knight. Maybe he's trying to go in here, but that's not going to work because I'm obviously just going to take it. Weird. Anyway, okay, maybe he wants to kick the bishop, but who cares? It's not trapped. So what do we want to do? Well, castling is reasonable, but I feel like we might even be have something more active. So if his knight's here, I wonder how weakening g5 is as a move. If we go g5, how does he take advantage? How does he get in here? If this, I mean, even if he gets in there, I can always snap it with either bishop. g5's a little crazy. I'm curious to hear like what a stronger player's thoughts are on g5, but any stronger players around? No? Okay, guess I'm on my own. So I have like a mind to play a5 so that when my bishop is kicked, I have a far back retreat square. It also creates space for the rook. It develops the rook, gains space on the queen side, kind of like that. So I'm thinking of moves like a5. I'm thinking of moves like... Actually, can we break in the center? If we go here, it's takes, 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 takes. You want to be castled before that. But maybe you can even go c6. He brings the knight in. We take it, queen takes it. Of course, we're still not castled, which is the ultimate problem on why we can't actually play d5. Or can we? No, because takes, takes, queen check, yeah. Okay. So I think now's a good time to castle. Now's a good time to castle, and if you're not going to do that, maybe a5. Oh, he does break in the center immediately. Okay, I mean, white's king is in the center too. It's not like if you had a rook here, this would never happen. But since there's a king on e1 also, like it's not the end of the world. So yeah, I can. But this is like, he just moves back. Why doesn't he take? If he takes, we're gonna take. He's gonna take. We're gonna take. He's gonna jump his knight in here and probably replace it. Oh, we're gonna kick it actually. That's not gonna work. Yeah, his king's in the center too, so I guess it's fine. Okay, so immediately breaking. Is that the best? What did the engine say? Okay, engine. Wow. I have to read off the top 4 moves. This is what we were discussing before we checked the move. D5 is a move, which I was looking to see if we could break in the center. Underneath that is C, and these are all the same evaluation, right? It's like the top 4. Let's just say they're all the same. So D5, C6, which is what I was thinking to break in the center. Very nice. Third move, A5. So very nice. And fourth move, long castle. So the 4 moves we're looking at are the 4 top engines, and they're all within 1/10 of a pawn, so it's the same. That's really cool. So Akiba chose D5. The thing is, whichever one you pick leads to like different types of games, so it's really cool. So he plays D5, breaking in the center. White doesn't want to give him, you know, the queen development to the center, so he just retreats the bishop normally. Okay, so now probably a little calculation is required. Clearly black's better with these pieces. The 2 knights, that should be easy to see. If you try to open up the center, you open up his bishop and help his knight. I don't see why that would be good for you. I think now is a good time to castle. Which side? Oh, actually before I do this, I just want to see how batshit crazy is G5. Okay, it's just equality. It's not a blunder. And then they want you to go. Oh, it's white's turn, so let's just say he castles. We get the same advantage back and we go G4. Okay, so it is an idea. I mean, it's obviously risky and sharp and you have to be accurate, but it's not a blunder, so that's cool. But I wouldn't play that in the game because I don't know enough ideas around it. This one I definitely is normal. He goes back, and now again, if I'm gonna castle short, I don't mind. I look at things like A5, but if I plan on castling long, I'm not gonna play that. So I'm either gonna castle long, play A5, castle short. Okay, so he castles long because he has a ready-made pawn storm and a hook. So he would get a free tempo move. You have to move the bishop, right? Then he can get another free tempo move because it hits the knight, so you have to respond. So that makes sense on why he chose queenside and why he didn't play A5, weakening his own where he was going to castle. So now white castles short, but similar to what I just said, we also have a pawn ready, you know, protecting to launch another pawn, like I was saying for him. And just like I said, we had a hook, he now has a hook. So we can go here. It doesn't come with tempo on a bishop, but it's very fast opening up, you know, at least the G file for me, if I want to attack him. Okay, but the center looks like it's not, you know, when the center is fluid like this, like he can take, I can push, and it can open up quickly. You don't really want to mess around too much on the flanks, only when the center is kind of stable. Do you really want to launch stuff? It's pretty stable here, having said that. So there's that. I wonder if we could sack. Can we take this, queen in, because the knight's pinned. But what are we even threatening? We're threatening the pawn, but we're threatening knight G4. Wait, does that work? Takes. I feel like the eval bar would jump. Takes this. He has to have defense. So let's say he goes. king over to unpin his knight and hit my queen. But then I can take the pawn with check. He has to go back. Knight g4. I can't calculate that clearly to the end. So in that case, I wouldn't be able to play it in the game. So let's look at different moves. Okay, now that he castled that way, you kind of do want to do this if possible, but you never really want to take in the center, so let's not look at these moves. You never really want to push these, right? So I'm thinking king b1, rook e8, g5. Those are the moves I'm looking at. Okay, he picks g5. Okay, so it makes sense. He's starting the pawn storm on the hook, and he's going to put it on the g file, unless white takes. Okay, so he just immediately unpins the knight so that it can. But still, if I push, takes. It's a lot of trades. How do we increase the pressure? I mean, you could theoretically bring the bishop back and then push the pawns together, side by side. That looks kind of nice. So if I go back, that doesn't work. If I go back, g4, h5, that's good for me. If I go back, he can't really move any of those pawns because his king's there. He can never break with f4. So I'm looking at bishop back so I can push my h pawn. I mean, I'm also looking at g4. I'm also looking at rook to g8. So I'll probably choose between those three. He goes c6, which was not on my radar. It's nice to know the engine says bishop g6 is the best. Okay, so it likes my move. It says c6 is excellent. Actually, that's the exact same evaluation. I don't know why they do that, but okay, so the idea behind this move is so that if white does take, which he eventually should because he needs to put a knight here, he needs to get a rook here, and then try to push these pawns. That needs to be his plan. So because white has to take, Akiba is arguing, well, I want to recapture with the pawn for two reasons. One, if you take with the knight, that offers a peace trade, which diminishes your attack. That's one. Two, after you shuffle the king over to b1, even though there's nothing on the c file, it should be fine because you're a lot faster than white. And it just solidifies the center so he can keep his pieces attacking the king side. So it does make sense. The one downside, as opposed to, let's say, bishop g6, is it's a little slow because you're trying to attack on the king side. White needs to attack on your queen side or in the center if he can open it. So you want to be fast, and you're not actually in any danger. He doesn't have anything going yet. His knight's on e1, d1, so you have time for this and to launch your pawns. I'm assuming that's everything I just said is the logical. Okay, so he brings the knight back into the game, and that puts a little more pressure on the central pawn. And it puts it obviously in a better position. I don't know why he didn't go here per se. Maybe he wants to reroute the other one that way. But okay. Takes. Is he looking for some sort of, piece activity? Kind of wishful thinking. So I'm looking at bishop g6 again. I kind of want to just ignore him. Bishop g6. I feel like you need to go with a plan, and the plan is bishop g6 h5. Like, that's a plan. Okay, so he goes bishop g6. White goes a4. It makes sense, although I was thinking more along the lines of breaking with c3 first, because it comes with tempo on the bishop. But he's choosing to use the a pawn because he blocked it with the knight. Weird knight move. Okay, so this is still slow. So I kind of want to ignore him again. and I want to push h5. Okay, if you told me I have to pick a second candidate move, I would have picked king b8, but it hardly seems necessary on this turn. You know what I mean? Like, you can go h5 and then and then at any other turn you can go king b8, but okay. But maybe I'm wrong. Oh, this pawn's hanging. Of course I'm wrong. Okay, that's why he didn't go h5. The pawn's hanging. Where was this queen? Was it always here? Oh, it's been here the whole time. Okay, yeah, I'm just blind. Okay, so if you can't play h5, then king b8 makes a lot of sense. Okay, then you're gonna have to go g4 before you go h5 at some point. All right, fine. It's fine. So he comes closer. Now, if you stop him with a6, normally that looks weird because you weaken your dark squares a lot. But he doesn't have a dark square bishop, and I have one specifically on that diagonal, so that's nice. You know, because if he tries to plant the knight in there with the pawn support, it gets a little tricky. So it's nice to have the bishop. He also, if you go here, cannot break with the b pawn anytime soon. Take him 3 turns. And there, I mean, that's 3 turns, so you probably can do stuff in the meantime. If you ignore him and let him push, you obviously aren't going to take it. You don't want to let him take, because that opens up the a file. So you would have to push past him, either 1 or 2. But let's just say 1. Then he's got this weird pawn that would be good in an endgame. I mean, it depends. It could be weak or strong, depending. So here, or a6. Here. a6, bishop a7. Okay, so let's go with a6, and we'll have a nice cubby hold for the bishop on a7. It also would let us kick the knight if we ever want to. Okay, so a6, or I don't really see it, because if you push here, you're kind of helping his knight, which is bad. Then you win the pawn. Queen back, queen over. I mean, okay, so oh wait, but does g4 allow f4? Yeah, I think you want to keep this so he never gets to break. So maybe you don't move this. So then, I guess a6. I don't know, it's kind of a tricky position. Alright, but I mean, but what were the alternatives? a6. Oh, a6 is by far the best, really? But like, what if you ignore it? Why is it so bad? Like, what if I just make a non-losing random move, like queen here? And he goes a6 and I go b6. Is it that terrible? Let's see, e takes d. Knight takes d. Knight takes d, c takes d. c3. Something like this. I mean, like I said, he'll get to use this square in certain scenarios. And they're saying this is just way worse. Well, not way worse. You know, not even a pawn worse, but a little worse than a6, just not giving him, instead of giving him that nice outpost in the b7 square, you're going to give him this square because your bishop is here, your pawns are on light, unobstructing it. Okay, there's probably more nuances onto why a6 is way better than the other construction. Okay, so white does what I thought he might and immediately try to utilize the weak square we just created. So we might have to just snap it off the board if that happens. And then he blocks the b file with his own pawn. Also, we can maybe leave the knight here and play around it, saying, you know what, well, if it doesn't hit anything and we attack your king, maybe it's a useless knight. But let's see, what would we do? We know he's coming in. You could try to stop it by winning a pawn, you know what I mean? Like queen c7. So if he comes in, takes, takes, takes. What other moves do we have though? It's pretty complicated. Because you want to do something here, but it feels wrong at this moment. Because the center is not exactly fixed. And it's about to change even more. He's about to kick my bishop. But is it worth moving? I don't want to move it until he kicks it though. I mean, queen c7 just looks... I don't know. Something about it seems passive. Is it just good though? It's hard for me to tell if this is passive or actually just good because it stops the plan. Another plan, now that he moved his knight away from this, means maybe my knight can roam over here. And if he opens up the center, I mean, I would like to take with the knight, but if he opens up the center. However, I can take back with the c-pawn, play f6, and that seems kind of reasonable. He'll probably go c4, or c3, bishop back, then c4. That's also unnecessary. Not easy, not easy. g4. We can't go h5 because it hangs the pawn. And g4, f4 takes. Actually, g4, f4 maybe push, hitting the knight. And then if takes, that looks interesting. Takes, takes, takes. He can't take because the queen hangs. So g4 now looks like the plan, because g4 h5 looks like the plan. Other than that, I'm hard pressed to find a plan unless you just want to do prophylaxis. He chooses queen c7. If we look at the engine, g4 is the top move. Queen c7 is one of the top moves. But they also have queen e7 and queen d6, which I don't understand the point of, and I'm not going to try to figure it out. Okay, so they do like the g4. I'm just curious. g4, f4. Yeah, you go g3. g3, h3, d takes c. This is what I calculated. Let's go. And now his queen is hanging, so he has to watch out, and his king is open. Okay, so that's why f4 is no good, because I had to refute f4 because I don't want him to get activity in the center. Okay, but he doesn't do that. He goes prophylaxis against the knight, and now the knight, what's it doing here? So I'm assuming he's going to kick me. He doesn't kick me. Oh, he supports this square, so now he can jump his knight into here. Okay. I feel like white's really wants to draw, and like going for a draw. It has no infiltration squares. There are no tactics. Take, take never works. So he's not threatening anything. He has c3, which isn't like a threat, but there's c3 and there's knight in here. These are the ideas I would be thinking of as white. So as black, you know what I just saw? I was about to say, well, you can't control the square another time, like for prophylaxis, but then I'm like, king a7, knight jumps in, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, king b6. Okay, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say king a7 is a move. I don't see how he can take advantage of the king there. He has no dark square bishop, so King A7 is a move, prophylaxis against this idea. And as far as this one, King A7 actually takes that square away from your bishop, so you would have to be prepared basically to take. I don't think pushing it in here is... You'd have to calculate that, but I don't like it without calculation. Okay, and if you're not going to play the King A thing and you're just going to let him trade or whatever... Well, now you moved your queen away, so it no longer supports the G4 square. So after he takes, you no longer have knight takes, unless you take his knight. So something like take the knight, rook takes G4, but then after F4 takes, he pushes. No, you can't push there. I don't like it without the queen support. It looks a little weird. Okay, so he puts his queen here. I'm looking at King A7. Is this dumb? Oh, well, it blocks the bishop. But if I take this and he takes with the knight and I go C4 and he takes, it's not supported. Although this pawn's hanging, but no, I don't want to go for something like... I wouldn't do that in a game. I don't know. I kind of like King A7 and say, what's your move? But that's really where the bishop belongs. I kind of want to play it and see how bad it is. Okay, it goes back to equality because it just wastes your advantage. After C3, you no longer have that square, like I said, and so you have to take the knight, and that knight's obviously way worse than your bishop. So, so everything I was thinking, you can see how it plays out in the lines when you check them. I mean, if he ever kicks me, I'm just going to go here. It's kind of... I guess I have to play over here, whether I want to or not. But now he moved his queen, and it no longer pressures G5 like I moved my queen. So H5, H5, that's what I'm playing. Yeah, I want to play H5. Let me go back. What does the engine say? C5 is best, and queen here. If you take, and he takes, it says best is with the pawn, so he doesn't hang the B pawn. So why is this so good for black? We go C4 like I was calculating. D takes, bishop takes, and why is this so good? Oh, it's not. The evaluation just keeps getting lower and lower every time I check the line. Yeah, it's not. So what? Yeah, so what? Because when you look at C5, it's like it's -1, and then when you go down the line, it's like, no, it's equality. What? Oh, it's because I didn't play I played the trading option. They want you to go queen E7. And that way you're threatening this tactic, probably. Oh, okay, whatever. So this is just based on that. So then that means the queen really has to go back so it doesn't walk into that tactic, and then it becomes a nice pawn even though it's in front of your king. But are you really going to play C4? Well, now it's supported so you can play C4 because the queen's there. C4 takes, bishop back. Okay, no, this does look strong here. You just got a lot further up the board and a lot more space. Still not trivial, but I could see I could definitely see the queen E7 line if the queen has to go back. Okay, but aside from that move, like what are other good positional moves? Bishop A7, H5, Rook H8, and Queen D6. Okay, so H5 was a move. It's the most logical one I see. But he played Queen D6, which offers the queen trade. The queen can't go here because the bishop covers, and I can't go there because the queen's hanging. And if the queen goes back, then he's just giving you free turns for no reason. So he takes, and you have to take. Okay, bishop's hit. We don't want to trade it. We drop back for sure. He goes here, eyeing our bishop, but it's loose, trying to maybe push and support the center. Okay, so now things are more, more clarity. The queens are off, and now this looks like it's no longer a thing. Um, like I can't really attack. My focus should probably be on the center. Although h5 is still a move, having said that. h5 is a move, even without the queens. We have a rook here, so I don't think we ever want to push and block our pieces. If we take, he'll just take with either the knight or the f pawn to open his rook. And why do we don't want to open his stuff? So we don't ever really want to take or push. So we don't want to move these pawns. His knight is dominated. It can go in here. I mean, you could try c5 to stop that, but then you block your own bishop, so I don't like that. And I guess after here, you can go king up and threaten to win a pawn, so then he has to go back. So that's pretty hilarious, so I guess you don't need to address it. So h5 seems like a move, the only move, maybe. Because knight here, it feels way worse than h5. What is this? Top moves. h5 is top move. At knight d7. Okay, the top three are the same. h5, rook e8, knight d7. So rook e8 prepares for if he takes, but that seems wrong because you can push h5 and you want the rook there for now. Knight d7 is what Akiba plays. And this simply is prophylaxis against his knight, and he wants to go f5. Ah, that makes f5 is nice. I don't like moving the knight back strictly for the prophylaxis. I don't think it's worth it, but it prepares f5, which means you get to get rid of this pawn without getting rid of your d pawn. Like, you want the d and e pawns here forever, so you get to get rid of his central pawn with f5. So this I like a lot. Okay, so let's see. h5, knight d7. I'm still going with h5 on this specific turn. Knight d7, if he jumps his knight in. f5. Everything is technically protected, and his knight is trapped, so he has to go back. Okay, I mean, they're both good. I don't know what to say. Hard for me to tell like which one's stronger. Okay, he just moves his rook over, which lets me tells me he wants to take and open up his rook. Huh. Okay, so now if he does manage to take, we have two options, kind of. We can cement with f6, which would loosen our bishop, or we can go rook e8, preparing for the opening. Now that there's stuff happening in the center, things like h5 are less and less what I want to do. And I guess now that he moved his knight here, I should be looking at f5 instead of h5. So f5, e takes d. My pawn is protected in the center. If I take with the rook, his a pawn's hanging. But b4. No, I would take with the pawn, I guess. So I can't put a piece here. So f5 or h5. And this guy, he goes knight d7, which prepares f5, and then he goes h5. But f5 is best, actually, which is funny. Now he plays the move I've been wanting to play. Damn you, Akiba. Okay, so now this guy, fucking 26 moves deep, and he's got a knight on d1, still trying to reroute it. Insane. Okay, so it's clearly going to go here, which doesn't have, I guess this would be the greener pasture. But now that he moved it away, it doesn't cover this square anymore. That's the drawback. If you kick with the pawn, he can just push past. So now's not the time, probably. And things like h4 don't really make sense at this moment. So I'm looking at f5. And I'm looking at f5. f5 or rook or relocation of this rook. Okay, I mentioned this earlier in the video that you had two options to solidify the rook over the f6 option. Okay, so he's not trying to break open the center. So if he's going f6, this tells me it's a lever pawn and he's going to be pushing these ones instead of going for this. He probably didn't want to open up the center, but if he goes here, what's the big deal? Let's say, which way would I take? Actually really hard to say, but let's say he takes this way. Look at this. Okay, and then this you just push past, or you can take, you know? Wow, e4 is not even that good. Wow. Because he ignores me. He goes b4. It's beyond me. But I don't get why he wouldn't want to go for something like this. Does it look that bad? Maybe he didn't want to give him the open b file, but take a pawn. I don't know. f5 looks reasonable. I thought he was repairing it, but he goes f6. So now that if white takes, he never has to defend this pawn with the knight or the rook, which again makes me want to think that he wants to just launch his pawns up. So white reroutes his knight into here, applying some pressure. So takes with the pawn. Outpost in here. Wouldn't have been possible if you played f5 earlier. Okay, so now you can't protect this square an additional time. You could take the knight, but I like my dark square bishop even more than my light square bishop. It just has more line of sight until this knight gets here. But of course, let's calculate a forcing line. Takes push, hits the rook goes back. Take the pawn. That doesn't look special, so what would we consider? See, now I feel like black kind of stuck himself. He's restricting himself in a lot of ways. Hard to say. Because like h4 and what's your plan? I mean, you have to go h3, he pushes past. g4 just hangs. Maybe we hang it. If we hang it, and when we hit the knight, we don't have rook to double with. It's like, what? Now, I'm kind of like running out of ideas, so I'm thinking king c7, which he obviously is not going to play. That would just free my knight. Like, I don't get why he allowed this. Takes. Of course, our center's strong if he does that, but... Okay, maybe... I don't like this knight where he put it now. I mean, I get what he's doing, but I kind of would rather have it here. And I kind of want to support the g4 square one more time as well. So lots of annoying things happening. It's not like he's threatening anything. It's just like hard to find the move I want to make. The plan. I want a plan. And the only plan I see is to push on the king side. So, okay, so let's work with that. How do we do that? Can we sack? Oh, maybe just take this guy and then push f5, because I really just want to push f5. Okay, so I would just get rid... I don't want to get rid of my bishop, but I don't really see plans. h4, knight in, then f5, h4, knight in here, takes. I mean, that has to be good for black. There's just, I mean, there's no attack, but positionally, there's just like a bind. So I guess you could play it super slow. I don't really know. What the hell is this? Engine says h4, rook anywhere. anywhere but where it went. And knight c5, which I looked at, but why do I want to trade his knight at the moment, as opposed to, like, right now it's restricted. It's weird. So h4 is the engine's best, but after h3, then it goes back to rook e8, and then eventually f5. So as far as like human plans, I really would like to play for f5. Yeah, that's right. So I would probably go rook f8 because I really want to play for f5, and I don't see a way to support g4. I would try that. Um, and that kind of forces him, if he doesn't want me to play f5, to put his knight in here. So let me see something. If I go here, and he goes here, and I take and he takes, yes, I move my rook here to lure this, but I feel like once he does this structure, it's no longer fluid. It's a lot more static, and I have so much control, like with this structure right here, these five, that now that this is cemented, I can do whatever I want, like on this flank or on a different flank. Okay, so that's interesting. I like that. I would have liked to get f5 in earlier, so you don't even have to give him that space, but... Okay, so Akiba goes here. It's kind of weird, because, I mean, he obviously wants to take and play on the d file, but he's doubling before he even got his knight out of the way. And ideally, I feel like you don't want to take, unless your plan is to double and infiltrate on the d file, on d2. Okay, so white finally goes b4, trying to get counterplay of his own and attack our pawn structure. And then play c4 and try to just push his pawns down. That's fine. I mean, now that Akiba put his pieces here, why'd he put his rook here? Like, if you put your rook there, you're gonna have to move your knight, right? Wouldn't that make sense? You no longer have knight c5, and if you want to undouble, like if you want to double your rooks now, what are you gonna go? Knight f8 to e6 to here. I guess h4 is a good move to help cement your knight in that square at some point. So knight f8, it's not a move you normally would make, but now that he did this with his rooks, I'm thinking about it. Knight f8 to e6. Or h4. Like, I don't know what this guy wants. Okay, so he takes first. He could have taken at any point, but he takes right now. Why? The only thing I see is he no longer has this, and he wants to push f5. But if he pushes f5 now, then what was this rook d8 move? Okay, I'm thinking f5 because the knight no longer supports this square. f5, h4, knight f8, king c7. Okay, he goes for d4, hitting the rook. Okay, so he's luring the rook onto a square where two things can happen. Either the pawn gets taken, and now you have doubled rooks with weaknesses, so you definitely don't want to do that as white. Ideally, what you wanted to do as white is push past and create this cementing structure, making the rooks dumb. But it comes to tempo on the rook, so you can't. So you have to move the rook back, and then Akiba is arguing, well, then I'm going to take, once again, reopening my doubled rooks. So his whole idea was to play on the d file this whole time. Slightly weird move order to do it all. But I guess if you lure the rook here, it works. Now, let's see. d4 is the move. How bad is h4? Just equality with knight c5. f5. Same thing. Equality with takes. Equality. Oh, because this pawn's super weak. Okay, so he's always just leaving this nice structure. Okay, so he plays in the center. There is a rule. If you can play in the center, you should. And if that's not a rule, there's one now. So he's going to move the rook, then he's going to take for sure to open up his rooks and get this beautiful square. Takes back with the knight. So now if he puts a rook on the outpost, he's going to try to not let it sit there very long. The problem is this is super weak. So if you go here, it comes with threats. So I'm looking at rook d4 immediately. Yeah, rook d4 is a good move. If you push this pawn, well, let's not get fancy. Also, knight back, is that a move? I would look at knight of fate. I would look at rook here. How does he defend this pawn? If he just goes rook over, and I move my knight back to f8, and then he kicks my rook, I actually have to go back. Okay, so not rook d4. So knight back, just because it's least active piece. It's garbage, and I want to put it here. So knight f8. h4, I mean, I've been saying that the whole game, but too little too late. At this point, it's like, can we fix our knight, please? Okay, h4 is a move, f5 is a move. Why are they moves now, like top moves now, but not a second ago? Because he can't immediately apply further pressure, and there's a lot of pressure here. Still, I want to fix this knight. I hate it. But he plays h4. What is this? White definitely should be activating this rook, I feel like. But he moves his king. So again, I want to improve my knight. Or f5, I guess. Or, now that my pawn's here, h3. So one of these moves. I guess king c7 is possible, but I feel like that should be made at a later time. Okay, so he does reroute the knight. What? Is this guy tripping? Knight's coming here, for sure. Okay. Knight back, defending those two, trying to counter those two squares, but undefending this. f5 looks strong. Takes. Push, takes. f5 looks like a move. h3 looks like a move. And if you try to go like just simplicity, double hit the bishop and the knight. If the knight takes, the rook takes, hitting the pawn. He defends the pawn, and there's no way to add dark square pressure on that. So that's no good. We want to leave his knight restricted in that case and play one of these. This one, sack a pawn, and this one. No, I like this one. I like these two pawn pushes. Okay, engine like c5, which I was looking at to activate the knight when it was here. But now that it's on a nice square, I don't feel like the need to play a move like c5, although it's actually the best by a good amount. By half a pawn, c5. c5. Okay, we're attacking this. If he blocks it, are we pushing past? Is this the idea to infiltrate? Are we going rook d2? Yeah, we're going rook d2. Okay, so this is basically based around this. So when you push, when you're pushing, you're forcing him to take. So we do get to put the knight here, which adds a third attacker here. So that's why this is good, c5. And if c5 push past, you can just take this one. Still not the first move on my radar, I'll tell you that much. h3 and f5 are both moves. Those two were on my radar. Oh, and bishop e8 is on there. So he plays bishop e8. Oh, so the idea behind this must be to get it here to pressure the weakness, which would involve c5. So he sees c5, and he's just taking this move first. Okay, So this just undefends the pawn outright, but counter hits the knight, so it's hanging if you move the rook. But now maybe c5. If he takes this, you take this, he takes the pawn, you take this pawn, he goes rook over. You can go bishop somewhere. If you just jump your knight, I don't know, here, attacking the weakness, takes, you're still attacking it twice, it's undefended. That looks reasonable. If you go here, he doesn't have to do anything. I don't think. He could just move back. And c5 takes looks bad for him. But again, this is critical line. c5 takes. I don't like that at all. Knight f4, h3. King no, I don't like that. Why is this knight always a problem? What does the engine say? Bishop f7? I mean, yeah, of course you can defend the knight, but like, you can also move the knight. Bishop f7, bishop d7. These are all about the same. Knight c7, knight f8, knight g7. So just move the knight so you can take the pawn, basically. And this helps his knight, of course. But don't you still get the pawn no matter what? Oh, he's bishop c4. I missed that move. Okay, yeah, so that's bad. Yeah, okay. I mean, there's not a square I feel so thrilled to move it to. That's the reason I wasn't like looking for squares. Like I don't want to go to any of these particularly. I also really don't want to pin my own knight to my bishop and take the pawn, so although I suppose knight c7, knight b5, I kind of like that. Now that like I have to pick a square, I'll go for that. Oh, okay, so apparently that's what he goes for. Yeah, that's the one that looks most human to me out of the options. He goes here, but I don't mind losing this knight at this point because it's his bishop's defending the pawn. Okay, I mean, you could put the knight here. Or you could prepare bishop d7 and trade the bishop e6. Yeah, I don't really see other moves. Can we sack? Takes. Rook exchange. Nah, it's bad. Okay, so he goes for this piece exchange. He puts a rook on the c file. Not scary. I'm still continuing with my plan. Okay, he doesn't take. He tries to double. If we take, he'll take with the pawn. So we don't eat it. We can infiltrate on either square. But our knight is dominated, so I don't particularly like that. Knight in here takes. I don't particularly want to open up the C or the A files. But take this bishop, take this pawn, rook, back rank, let's say he takes and you take, and you're threatening, let's say, rook b1. Is that enough? I don't really know, actually. So you're kind of running out of moves here. Can we throw in h3? If he takes our bishop, we can capture this pawn intermezzo, ruining his structure. If he takes our pawn, we can take a pawn hitting the rook. And if he pushes past, maybe that's an asset in the endgame, or maybe you have to worry about knight g1 losing your pawn. hard to, I don't really buy that. So I still like h3. If he has to do this, I could put a rook on h8. So h3, taking the bishop, knight b5. I mean, what else? Okay, so he takes the bishop. Engine says take the bishop. Yeah, the other moves are ridiculous. So take the bishop. Oh, how's h3? It doesn't list it, but still has a minus -0.8 advantage. Best move is to take. And then rook h8 like I imagined. King e3. King e3. Oh wait, why rook e8? Why not just take the pawn? Oh, this is best. Yeah, what? Anyway, so h3. Okay, they say bishop takes is better. He has to take with the pawn so he doesn't lose it. And now, this is a beautiful outpost. So our knight is dominated, like I mentioned. So it sucks. I mean, you do get to infiltrate with a rook trade or without, but you get to attack one weakness. It's not convincing to win a game necessarily. Although you are obviously better with this control. But I feel like maybe we just move the knight back and really get control over the outpost, because these are super weak as well. So he does bring it back. He protects the weakness I was mentioning we might target in the future. And now I'm looking at rook in. If you go knight in, takes, you have pressure. He goes king up, check, back, other rook up, then he pushes the pawn, and you're never really double attacking any of the pawns. So it's probably to our advantage to keep the knights on, noting that he cannot put the piece here, because that would be bad for us. Okay, so I'm looking at h3 or rook infiltration somewhere. Okay, so he goes rook infiltration here. Just seeing the engine. Weird moves. Okay, and what does white do? Okay, white doubles. So now we can choose to infiltrate with the back rank, which I do like. I actually do like that. More than trading, because why take a pair of rooks off the board at this moment? His are passive, so weird. I like rook d1. Or rook, like just getting it out of the trade. G4. H3. I'm never sure about H3. So probably just for stability, I would just get my rook out of the way. I mean, you could take... I feel like it's the same as moving it, but... Okay. But then just infiltrate with the other rook somewhere. And now the only thing undefended is this. You can't reach it at the moment, and he could push it at any time. So we need to try to create some other type of win. If we get this in here and now he trades, we have a pass serve. But then he hits our rook, we give a check, he moves his king. When he attacks this pawn at some point, we won't be able to defend it. So I don't mind king to the center. I don't mind... What other moves are there? Is this a move? No. That also gives him this outpost again. This pawn push, this pawn push, this pawn push. I mean, h3 makes the most sense, but none of them I want to actually do anymore. Which means a knight move, a rook move, or a king move is... And so king c7. It's hard to improve these pieces meaningfully because there's not enough weaknesses. It's more like one weakness, not two. So I would try to just bring the king in. Oh, that's what he does. And now c5, which gets rid of that pawn, so you can't attack it. It does undefend the b5 square, but if my knight's no better there than where it is, so he's stopping the king. He's also stopping pawn advances, which would lose you the game. But king d7 still, you're trying to move it towards the center. So I'm looking at king d7. I'm looking at... Actually, I don't really see any other moves. Other than maybe rook d1. Although then you're giving his knight access to the square, so I don't even want to do that. Yeah, king d7. What other moves? What's the engine say? King d7, king d8, how could king c8 be a move? What? Rook a3? The hell does that do? Takes. Weird moves. Okay, so the only ones that make sense are basically moving your king to the center. So king d7, which is what we said. Okay, now he's trying to create his own play, but that shouldn't be possible since we're more active. It also weakens this. We can also positionally go here. He attacks it with the knight. Can we cement it? He takes. And yeah, he can just defend. If we take the pawn, he can take with the knight trying to get it in here. Right, so if taking helps him, if pushing provides a target, then maybe we can ignore. So I kind of want to put my king on e6 now. This comes with some weird pressure, and now our king is closer to the center. So before, when we were calculating this and he took, we had this weird pawn here, but now maybe our king is close enough to defend that pawn. So here, if we go in here, which is desirable, and he takes, of course you could take with the rook, but that's not like an advantage. And you take with the pawn, he attacks your rook, you give him a check, he goes wherever, king up, rook over, king up, f4 check, takes, check, but king e4. Where's the c4 pawn in that line? Oh, I could take it. Yeah, that works. So now I'm thinking knight d4, assuming all of that calculation was correct. And then I want to go king e6. That's my plan. I don't really know what else to do. He takes, which apparently the engine hates. And the reason I'm assuming the engine hates it, I'm going to say it's because of the knight and not because of the pawn. Because right now the knight can't go forward. And most importantly, can't even go here. Not most importantly, but it can't go forward. Right? So now it can. And you're giving it a square. And an outpost. And why did you do that? It makes no sense. But what do I know? I'm a noob. Akiba is obviously a lot better than me. Yeah, like I said, engine hates it. Top engine move is knight d4. If the second engine recommendation is king e8, then you know that the only real human move is knight d4. Okay, but Akiba takes. Wait, what? Okay, I know I'm not like that I'm self-taught and not good at chess, and these guys are grandmasters. But what the hell? Why would you break open and then take with the h pawn? It's not like you have rooks ready to infiltrate here or something. You only have one rook, and you need it here to protect stuff. So it's not like you're going to use the h file to do anything. And your knight is terrible. It's like the one thing you want to improve. What? Okay, so this guy does this, which is insane. Okay, so knight d4 was the top move engine choice last time when I calculated it, so the calculation was probably fine. Now there's this change. Knight d4, I don't think... Oh wait, did I miscount the tempos? Hold on, takes, king, check, king. Oh, no, we do get a turn. Then he attacks with the rook, we get another turn. Takes. Okay, so the calculation didn't change. We can still go knight d4. Takes. Here. Takes. Ah, the check. King somewhere, takes, takes. G4 is a move because whether he ignores, takes, or pushes past, all bad things happen to him. So if I go here and he ignores me, well, we're just going to take stuff with the check. If he takes, he has double isolated pawns. We're going to scoop up stuff with our knight and our rook soon. If he pushes past, we have this intermezzo check, which allows us to take on f4 enough times. Okay, but a knight d4 might just be winning. G4 is a great move. Knight d4 is another move, but g4 is by far the strongest, it says. Oh, I didn't see this. What is this? Okay, so this is a way to protect the pawn, but he's going backwards. And can't we just move forwards? When your opponent goes backwards, that means you can go forwards, usually. I mean, we can take, but there's no point to that. If we jump forwards, and he... Yeah, we could jump forwards. I don't know. I've been wanting to jump forwards for a while now. If you go here, which is interesting because it attacks this pawn as well. It has the same idea behind it. If he pushes, he hangs. If he takes, it hangs. If he leaves it there, it hangs. So I kind of like knight g5, actually. Knight g5, knight d4. I don't really see other moves. Okay, so yeah, knight g5 must have been stronger. Nice, nice. King over, didn't calculate that. I mean, you can always throw in the check. If he takes with the knight, rook takes. If the king moves, you just... Well, it can't move and stay in contact with the rook, so you could take this pawn. Why do you move the rook? Can you not take the pawn? Oh, he takes the rook if you take the pawn. What am I saying? Just ignore me on that. Okay, so obviously you move the rook. I've been doing this for way too long at this point, so... This game is 50 moves so far. Okay, so you obviously move the rook because he's about to take it. I just fumbled in my brain. Okay, so now he hits the knight. It's a little weird because, like I said, isn't this pawn hanging in every line? So we take it. He takes this. Doesn't matter. If you throw this with check, it's protected, so you can always do that safely. So throwing the check. Why not, though? Yeah, even the engine wants the check. Okay, so he takes. I mean, the engine, everything's -5, so he goes back. But are we ever gonna take this? Yeah, okay, take it with check. Okay, how to convert? You can go king up, you can go pawn up, or you could first improve the rook somewhere and keep it on a square that perma pressures this pawn to try to keep his rook permanently on this file, and then proceed, right? So like you can try to maybe get it here, so it's always attacking this, and then do everything else. But you don't necessarily have to. Knight back, because he's just rerouting and pushing pawns. I don't know about that move, because I kind of liked it because it was restricting his knight from going anywhere. I mean, I know it's just a trade, but at the end of the day, I'm up two past pawns, so you know his king's cut off. I definitely welcome that trade. But he goes knight h5. Other moves: king e6, rook d3. Oh, so it looks like I might have been on point with some of my ideas. King up and rook over. He goes back, just getting it out of the way of his passed pawn and putting it on a defended square, so that makes sense. He goes here, but aren't you walking into what he wants? That move doesn't make sense to me, the rook move, because you were going to put this here anyway and block the file, so it's weird. King in the corner. Okay. That doesn't work. If we hit the rook, he can't go down, he can't go over. He can throw in a random check, which only improves our king. But that lets his knight out, so we don't want to let his knight out. He's also not threatening anything. We could try to attack his king, but we could just go for this pawn. Although g3, if he can't go here, and he goes back, we take it. If he moves his rook anywhere other than the check, we still go g2 check. He has to move his king. We don't have rook h2 checkmate because of the knight. So here, check, king up. I would love to get my rook on the h-file. I don't know, since you can't calculate that to the end, I'll just do something simple. Either move my king up or just go for the pawn. Oh, there was the pin option and then trying to win it. Yeah, that's true. So he has to definitely react to this. What does the engine say? G3, but what's the line? G3, he's going to give it check. You're going to improve your king, but it's his turn again. So is there nothing he can do? Apparently not. Mate in 46. Holy moly. Just out of curiosity, I'm not going to go through the 46. I just want to see what the idea behind the G3 is. And there is no idea. That's why I couldn't calculate it. It's just a bunch of random move your king in and super slow long-term plan. Okay. So aside from G3, we have improve the king, which is much more normal. Rook A1, which makes a ton of sense once you see it. Yeah. And Rook B3, which is going for the pawn. So you can convert any other ways. Okay, so he goes for this, which is just a restriction, right, of the piece. So that's super strong with super threats. And there's nothing he can do about it. Random check, and he resigns. Okay, good. Because that was a long game, 55 moves. Whew. That was one hell of a Joko piano game. So Akiba Rubenstein takes this one in the bag. Lots of development, right? Lots of center. And then he simply delayed the king's safety because his king is obviously not in danger. Look at this development. Look at this center. That's clearly the priority of his game. Center, development, king safety. Kind of picture perfect if you look at it here. Of course, it's tricky to play accurately for an entire course of a game. But we came up and found most of the ideas. Hopefully you could see where my mind was looking and what I was trying to go for, and then what this grandmaster, much stronger player, eventually did choose. So very interesting. And you can also see different ways to convert these endgames, which is kind of hard for many chess players because it is hard. So I know this was a long video, but hopefully you followed along, you came up with your own ideas, and you kind of checked it against ours. If you like these, let me know in the comment section. After Akiba, I'm going to go through quite a few games of his, but I do have someone else in mind that I do want to do, but it is going to take a while. So good luck in your chess. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. Goodbye.